first rule in grip sport is you tell everyone about grip sport.
Crushing, pinch grip, thick bar, wrists.
If the best guy in the world can't lift 100 pounds on it, I don't give a shit about it.
Okay. Hey, everybody. This is Zach Mullins welcoming you to the first episode of The Grip Show. And for our first episode, we are going to be doing an athlete interview. But in general, I just want to give a quick breakdown about what kind of things we're going to be doing with The Grip Show and what kind of content's going to be coming out. Athlete interviews or interviews with grip strength people is going to be one facet of it. And in general, we're going to be covering like historical feats, covering the history of how some of these things came about, different topic discussions. There might be multiple people speaking with me on some of these episodes. Also, another main reason for the show is looking to just get kind of this underground sport pushed to a bigger audience. So we're trying to get more exposure for this underground sport, push it to new people, introduce it to new people, try to help them understand it and kind of welcome them into the grip community. One of the ways we're going to be doing that is when these major competitions, or even if they're small competitions happen, I'm going to be doing recaps with people from those events, kind of breaking down how everybody did, results, analysis, stuff like that. That way we can pretty much, kind of just measure everybody's performance and just do a recap like you would for anything else. You see these sports shows, they have, football, baseball, name the sport. They have panels of people discussing their sport, breaking it down, analyzing it, doing predictions, promoting upcoming shows. And that's just something that we're going to get into as well. So this isn't going to be an interview only show, but just letting you know that there's going to be more to it than athlete interviews. So there's going to be about 3 or 4 different dimensions to the show. But for our very first episode, I have Joe Hobson from Australia with me. And just going to welcome you to the show, Joe.
Hey, Zach, how are you, man?
I've been doing pretty good, man. Been looking forward to this for a minute. Took me a minute to get everything set up and kind of working, but we're good to go now. So
yeah,
glad to get you on here. If you don't mind, I'm just going to kind of lead in. I guess the first time that I met you, it was online talking, so I didn't meet you in person, but first time we interacted, I remember having the Fat Bastard Barbell Company grab ball.
Oh, yeah.
And I was only lifting like 130 pounds and it was falling out of my hand. And I felt stupid because I was looking at all these leaderboard lifts and everybody was doing so much more weight than me. And I was just like, I'm going to get crushed. I'm going to get killed doing this. You know what I mean? I just felt stupid. I'm like, there has to be something. So like one of the things I did was I went to like the most recent King Kong results, scrolled to the top and was like, who lifts the most on this shit? You know what I mean? And it was like Ardo Gironin, like Joe Hobson. And I was like, okay, like, let me reach out to this dude and just see if he messages me back. So first time I reached out to you, I was like, hey, like, what do you do on the grab ball? Like, aside from climbing background and some other stuff that we may get into, but, I hit you up for some advice on the grab ball and you instantly helped me out and started giving me tips and there was no hesitation. So I thought that was cool being kind of a newer guy in the sport and reaching out to somebody that I looked up to as kind of like, oh man, this guy's been placing high and doing very well, like several weight class records, things of that nature. So I'm like, man, for him to reach back to me, I was like, damn, that's pretty cool. And, he's giving me good advice. So I just want to say thank you for that. But that's the first time we talked. I don't know if you remember that or not.
I do remember it. And man, very welcome. Very welcome. That's kind words. Thanks.
But yeah, so real quick, I know we're going to get into grip sport and talking about different feats of strength and kind of the training that goes along with all that. But if you could, I know you've done it before, but if you could just give the listeners kind of a brief intro to, what were you doing prior to finding out about this sport or finding out that it was even a competition? What kind of stuff were you into?
Man, I've been into like heaps of stuff and not all sort of mainstream. I played soccer as a kid. And then when I was a teenager, I found rock climbing and I got right into that and I took it really seriously. And Did that for a lot of years, and that was my main focus. And anyone that's really into rock climbing knows it turns into a lifestyle. You pretty much choose what you're going to do with your life so that you can go climbing as much as possible. It's just one of those super addictive things. You get bitten and you want to do it, or you don't. And I kind of came and left rock climbing a lot over the years, consistently doing it. I got into like timber sports for a year or two there, and
okay, so like lumberjack stuff.
Yeah,
like
cutting, wood sawing, and
yeah. I've never done it. I mean, I split wood and stuff like that, but I love watching like the timber sports games and stuff where they're running saws, or they're the only one I wouldn't do because I hate heights is when they like knock the wedges in and they climb up.
Oh yeah.
Not a fan. But no, I think it's cool as hell that you did that. Like, I'm kind of jealous of that one.
Man, it was cool. I was doing a job at the time. I was like, tree lopping, and the guy that ran the company did it. And I saw him training with the axe. I'm like, man, I always wanted to have a go at that. So we used to show at the Easter show here in Australia every year. They used to have wood chopping, and I'm like, that is cool, man. And for whatever reason, I always got attracted to sharp things like axes and knives and whatever else. And can't really explain that. But anyway, this is wood chopping, and I got to have a go, and I was really bad at it. I was really slow, and it was not that. Like in training, I got the saw jammed, and then it gave, and it caught my arm and ripped a big chunk off the top of my forearm, and I was up the hospital. And then another time I spent hours sharpening this axe, and my friend was going to come pick me up, but he's running a bit late, and I was like, I'll just try that axe out. So I went down and had a go in the driveway, and the axe came down, and where I'd cut the V, it hit on a funny angle, and it sheared off, and I went straight across and cut the top off my left big toe, straight through the nail and everything, and just skimmed the bone.
I'm guessing no steel toes? No steel toes?
No, well, they don't really encourage steel toes in wood chopping, because if the axe comes down, it can take the top of your toe off. But if it hits the steel toe, it'll ricochet off and can take that whole other foot off. So you'd rather lose a bit of this toe than that whole other foot.
Okay.
So they do have chainmail socks and stuff like that, but I obviously didn't have that. So I couldn't walk for about a month. I got plastic surgery, and I was lucky I didn't hit the bone, or I would have lost the top of my big toe and had to learn how to walk again. And anyway, I got sort of scared after that and gave that away, but then went back to rock climbing when my toes started being all right again. And this whole time I was, training finger grip strength, stuff like that. And over the years, like, even though I came and went from rock climbing, because you don't always have time to go climbing. It can take hours to go for a climb. And I just kept training the whole time and loved the training. And even if I stopped climbing for 5 years, I'd still be doing the finger training. Yeah. And then I think I've said before that it was during COVID. I was like, how am I going to keep my fingers strong? And I found the Iron Mind grip tools, and I had grippers previously, but never really knew what grip sport was, or arm lifting or anything like that. And I had a Rolling Thunder, never really knew how to use that very well. And yeah, I just got hooked on that. I started looking up records, and I wasn't too far behind. And something about leaderboards, the competitive side of me, just wanted to climb up. And then reached out to Adam Glass, and he was doing all these cool things on inch dumbbells. And I was like, man, where on earth do you get one of them? And then started looking at import costs, and that was another world altogether. And so I had to get one made here in Australia. My friend Glenn Crutley down in Melbourne, he got involved in it. So
he's a super strong dude too.
He's crazy strong.
Yeah, he's a strong guy. Yeah, I'm just throwing that out there. That like, I've seen him lift some stuff too. But both you guys are strong. You guys got a pretty good crew out there in Australia with all your lifters. But yeah, so you met him pretty early, or you've known him?
Yeah. So I was on Instagram, and I was posting some stuff, and I can't remember if he reached out to me or I reached out to him, but we hit it off pretty quickly. We're talking about inch dumbbells and how expensive it was, and then we went down the path of getting one made, and we found a foundry here that were not super easy to deal with. and we got a pattern made, and we got them to make 2 dumbbells, 1 each. And then they turned out perfect, but 5 kilos heavier than an inch. And so when they came, I was ready to lift an inch, but this thing was 5 kilos or 10 pounds heavier. And I got it to about knee height and dropped it. And it took about 3 months after that before I could actually lock it out. But
I mean, that's still, so keep going. Yeah.
I was just going to say, we tried to contact the foundry and they've got no interest in making more. So we've got the only 2 ever made. Me and him have got 1 each, and that's it. But
yeah, lifting a bell that weight, that high right off. I mean, that's serious. Like, that's pretty world-class grip strength right out the gate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In a way. I mean, if you were to take that to most people, because like, man, the first time I touched an inch dumbbell, the shit didn't move. I mean, they dropped it off like in the parking lot, out in a gravel parking lot. And I was looking at it, and this was like a true like 172, just under 173. And I remember, like, obviously I wasn't like chalked up or warmed up and blah, blah, blah. I could make any excuse, right? I don't think it would have mattered. The thing did not move at all. And I was kind of thinking like, shit, like maybe this isn't for me. Like, you know what I mean? Like I had those doubts, like maybe this just isn't one of those feats that, you know, that I'm going to ever be able to do, you know, that's kind of like the doubt that it kind of first like hit me with, you know what I mean? Cause I didn't have any like, oh, I got it to my knees. It was like, I didn't even budge this thing and get it to spin. So it's like, maybe I just wasted some time and money. But what I was going to mention about, no, legit, like it had me like, not like in depression, but I was almost like, it sunk down in the moment. Cause I envisioned me like doing more to it. And it like instantly humbled me. And I was just like, yeah, maybe this is for people that are like 300 pounds with giant hands and, you know, whatever. But
it's deceptive, right?
No, it is. But the thing I was going to bring up that was your first inch dumbbell?
I had homemade inch style dumbbells. So I got some dumbbells. I think one was 45 kilos, one was 47, and one was 49 kilos. And I put a 60 mil handle on them. I made one. I cut the handle off one and welded it on the outside, and then put a 60 mil handle, and that ended up being 85 kilos. And I also got one and just put a 60 mil handle on it, and it was 45 kilos. But then I made it loadable, so I could just incrementally make it heavier and heavier. The thing with that is the handle was 150 mil long, not 100. So when you grab it, you're nowhere near the bell. It's a bell-free lift.
Yeah.
So it was extremely difficult.
Tilt. You'd either be like majorly tilting it, or you're like dead center, and
that's
you have
right.
To like strict.
So for you to lift it level, it's completely bell-free, which is just so much harder on your grip. Anyone that's tried it. So sure. I had used my adjustable one, and I'd lifted, I think up to 80 kilos on it, and I was like, okay, no worries. So when we finally got ours made, we're like, yep, no worries. The guy said it was 80 kilos, but they weren't. They were 83 kilos. And
that's still a good, that's still a cool weight though. I mean, that's a good weight to have. I mean, so that's like almost perfect. But the other point I was going to bring up about having that being like more than an inch, you know, or the typical Thomas inch dumbbell standard weight, like 172, is just kind of starting when you start with the bar kind of high, or that's what you're first exposed to. I think that's a good thing for grip. Because like with me, I didn't know, you know, I started finding out about the videos, like you said, you know, I saw Adam Glass doing things. I saw Jed Johnson's videos on YouTube. So those are two very common people that that's a lot of people's gateway into this sport or this hobby, or, you know what I mean? This world. So I started watching those guys lifting, you know, the bells and the blobs. And I didn't know much about I just knew like the feet, like, okay, lift a fat man blob. So, you know, I didn't even think about like the application of training with smaller ones. I was like, I just want to do that one. So like my first couple blobs I purchased, so like I had no reference for anything of like, well, what I could see it in video, but in person, like the first 2 blobs I purchased was a red pill and a fat man blob. So like, that's all I had to go by. Whereas, you know, and I think that's good, because it's like, that's kind of your expectation. And then you can always drop down and be like, oh, this is an 80 or a 90. But I think it can be a little disheartening for guys when they get like, oh, I have a 60 and a 70 and an 80. And then you bring out that like giant feet and they're like, holy shit, like this is, it almost makes it seem like more of a mountain. So like if you start kind of with
Had a false confidence.
yeah. So when you kind of start high, like with the, you know, like you said, you first get into the sport, you find out about it. I know for a fact your personality, when you started checking records lists, you weren't looking at the bottom. You didn't check 25th place. Right?
No, man.
You're like,
No,
who's
man.
at the top? Who's the top in
Yeah.
my weight class? Who's the top no weight, open weight class? And so that's what I think, that having that 83 kilo bell kind of being the first one made is like, it just raises your level, because it's like, that's what you're trying to lift. So you set the bar high and it's just going to work out for you because that's what you're first exposed to. And it kind of puts you, I don't know, like if the strongest guy around you can only lift 100 pounds, you think 100 pounds is good. But if you're around guys lifting 300-400, whatever, and I'm just naming random lifts, it could be anything. Just having the bar high with those feats, I think, is important because it puts it into perspective right out the gate, and you don't get misled or you don't kind of cheat yourself. Does that make sense to you at all? Man,
100%. And I think the fact that I could get it to my knee height just lit a fire in me. And I'm not gonna I'll be honest, man, I had some rough patches when I got it from the casting.
Yeah.
So I was utilizing that. And then I was like, no, man, that's not how I'm lifting this thing. So then I went home and I filed it round. So it was perfectly round, perfectly smooth, and there was no way to make it easier. And then it took 3 months. So
okay.
But like the list you were talking about, I was looking at the top, and at the top, well, the list that I was looking at was the hub. And at the very top was Harry Tollenan.
Yeah.
And so I reached out to him. I was like, hey man, I know you're the world record holder, whatever. I'd love some tips if you've got any time. And man, he was just straight back, told me everything he knew. And I was like, man, that's how I'm going to be. Anyone ever wants info, I'm an open book, man. Like, that was so cool the way he helped, and he was so approachable and so happy. And I was like, man, that's the top guy, and that's how he is. And that's rad.
That's a good example. And I could say, I've had similar experience. I didn't talk to him about the hub, but every time I've spoke with him, typically messaging and stuff, he's been super supportive and super helpful. Like I said, so that's one thing I would bring up to beginners or anybody that's new, I guess, to this sport or this lane of strength training. Is that it's a pretty welcoming community, because if you can look at these guys that hold world records and are at the top, I mean, I've had talks with so many guys that have world records or have done feats that, barely anyone else can replicate. And I have not had a single issue with any of them, as far as them giving me info, being real down to earth. Whereas like, if you go to some of these other sports, if you think like your favorite sports player is going to like give a shit about you or help you out with your technique, like, dude.
Yeah, right.
Like, you know what I mean? So I think that's they're not even looking your direction. So I think that's one thing that's still good. I mean, yes, we want the sport to grow to a point where maybe it is a little more mainstream, accepted, more exposure, bigger events, blah, blah, blah. But that is one thing with it kind of being a smaller sport that I think is cool, is that you truly do have access to some of the strongest hands that have ever walked the face of the earth. And you can reach out and directly talk to them. So it's like, and they're pretty much going to talk back, and they're very respectful and helpful. So like, there's almost no excuse to not get better or not get stronger when, you're in that community, and that's the kind of the culture, you know what I mean? So just something for new lifters.
I think it's a common goal for everyone to grow it a bit. It's so tiny. And, if you get someone super elite and they're like, hang on a minute, this guy's interested in my sport, and that's pretty rare, man. Like, if you follow 200 people that into grip, well, that's probably the only 200 people that are into grip, not just the top 200. So it's kind of, it's great, man. Like, everyone kind of knows everyone,
For sure. Yeah,
and I love that. I love that about it.
Yeah, it's almost like it's big enough to where you can say like, okay, guys have done things that no other human has done.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's not like so big that it's, I don't know, like oversaturated, or it's like lost its soul, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's other stuff that almost becomes too, got to think of how to word this. Just oversaturated, too much content, too much social media. It's just, it almost becomes, it's like it loses its integrity. And right,
Diluted.
yeah, exactly. And I think right now, for the most part, even if it's just underground fetusts that are doing their, their pursuits on their own, if
Yeah.
it's guys that are looking to compete, it's still a pretty good, time to be involved in grip. And I think, hopefully it's only going to get better. But
Yeah.
just an observation. You know what I mean? There's a lot of other sports that I think I don't know, they start changing rules, they start doing something different. It starts becoming more about the money, and it kind of loses its pureness.
Yeah.
And I don't think that we have to worry about necessarily money becoming the issue in grip.
Only the availability of it to buy more gear.
Yeah. That's the only money issue with grip, is where can I find some more so I can buy more stuff, right?
Yeah, no one's going to question your motivation.
Yeah, dude, one thing,
No one's going to sell out.
like me, I've made like 100 one-time purchases. Like that's my thing. Like my garage is full of like 100 one-time purchases. Like, well, I got to get this one because it's the Fat Man. It's rare. Da, da, da. And it's like the next week it'll be the same thing. Well, but I don't have this one in this increment, and it's like another one-time purchase. It's like it just never ends. So yeah, grip, very similar to like you talked about, kind of getting drawn in with climbing, it almost being a lifestyle. I think a lot of people, when they kind of get bit with grip, they feel the same way. They you keep, there's so much stuff, you just find out about it, you buy everything, you eventually kind of realize you don't need all that shit, and you kind of get rid of, you kind of narrow it down. But for the most part, everybody kind of goes a little haywire, I think, in the beginning.
But it seems on the surface, it seems like you don't need much, but as you get into it, there's a lot of stuff available, man. And when you look at these people training and they've got this cool grip wall of all the stuff, and you're like, man, I got hardly anything. I need more stuff, And then just recently, I've been finding that I don't really need all that. I don't really need 10 rolling handles to train rolling handle. As long as I've got sort of one of each size, man, that's close enough. Because if you're training for a competition, well, until you get there, you don't know the condition of the handle anyway, do you? If you're using your crusher and it's rusty and caked in chalk, well, you're used to that number. But if you get there and it's slick and slippery and no chalk, or the metal's really cold, or 15 people have lifted before you, well, your number's going to be completely different anyway. So
Absolutely.
The number you're doing at home, that sort of reference is kind of irrelevant.
It definitely can be. And I would say most experienced guys, and like I said, I'm still myself, I've pulled some good lifts off. So I'm not trying to downplay it necessarily, but I'm still relatively new. I think a lot of people have the misconception that like I've been doing grip for 10 years myself. And it's like, I've really only been competing 2 years. So I definitely know what you mean when you kind of have this idea of your training numbers and your training maxes going into a competition. And then you get there and it's just like, this isn't like my bar. This doesn't feel like my handle. A lot of the equipment is still standardized and it's, it's the proper equipment, but due to, humidity, weather conditions, whatever, stuff just changes sometimes. So I'm pretty sure if you talk to any experienced person, they can definitely guarantee that, if they've been to a competition, they've had those days where like they fell 10, 15 pounds shy of what they wanted on multiple things. And it just wasn't their day. You know what I mean? So I definitely,
my theory is, if you've got 4 lifts, I open somewhere within 10% of my PR. Mm-hmm. And if I get within 5% of it, maybe below, maybe over, that's a great result on the day, but you really want to get one on the board.
Well, for sure. Now that leads me to another question.
Yeah.
Have you ever, and I'm talking like sanctioned competition now, so that could be King Kong or any other sanctioned competition you've done.
Yeah.
Have you ever fully just bombed and zeroed a lift? Just straight zero, missed your opener, just jumped too high and just zeroed it all?
Nearly. I think it was King Kong 21 or maybe 22. I opened too high on the little bighorn, and my first attempt failed. Second attempt failed. Third attempt failed. Going in, like my heart was sinking, and I was like, "Oh my goodness!" Like, and this was a number that it was just a warm-up number to me, but again on the day, and
it's a
with
friction
5
lift, man.
seconds. Say it again.
I just say just a friction lift. Some of those friction lifts can be for sure finicky.
Totally. And with 5 seconds to go on my fourth attempt, I always did little bighorn right hand. And on 5 seconds to go, I thought, what have I got to lose? Went left hand, and I did it, and I hit the bar. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It was, but yeah, man, that was really close. But after that, I was like, man, never again. I opened safe, get one on the board. Now get better. And, you know, I can make fairly distant jumps because you've got the confidence.
Yeah.
Like once you've got one on the board, you're like, okay, now I can go for it. Like, I want to get the best one I can on the board, but I'm not going to get zero. Like if you get zero in one event, man, that's going to bring your numbers way down. Like if you're 15, 20, 15, and then 100, wow.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone that got 40, 40, 40 is going to beat you.
Absolutely. Now for kind of competition training, I guess just to kind of pick your brain a little bit about how you would prepare. And I just want your take on it. A lot of people will have these PR numbers in their head for events, but they trained them on separate days and they didn't do them consecutively in competition, you know, order or all within the same session. I was just curious, do you ever, like if you have a competition coming up, do you ever do a day where you actually mix each lift in where you're, you know what I mean? Kind of testing the events in order to see how each event kind of fatigues the next one. Because I think a lot of people train and they get these really high numbers, but it's the only thing they lifted that day. And then they get, you know, and then they do another handle and then they get a really high number. And then they have all these PRs going in. And then they think that if they just do them all the same day, that all 4 of them are just going to go up or all 5 events are going to go up. And it's like, that couldn't be like further from the truth. So like, what's your take on that? And kind of how do you make sure that your training kind of carries over into that platform or that competition setting?
I know exactly what you're saying. If I'm months away, I might do one tool. Time-wise, I've got kids and work and stuff like that. If I've only got half an hour, I might do a little bighorn. If I've got an hour, I might do a little bighorn and crusher, you know. But leading up to the event, I'll make sure I do all 4 events in each session.
Okay.
And I'll also mix the order. So even if I know what order they are on the day, if hub's last, I'll do it first and then whatever else. And so, like, when in your training session have you ever got 4 PRs in any lift?
Yeah.
So how can you possibly expect to do that on a day with all the other added pressure? And, you know, so basically I'll try and max out. So if I wanted 100 on little bighorn, I'd be trying to get 110 in training, because I know by the time it's my 3rd or 4th lift, plus hours of sitting around, plus, I don't know about you, man, but I get excited. So I don't sleep the night before comps. I'm just wired, ready to go. So I'm tired. I'm probably dehydrated. You're conscious of your weight for your weight class. You've got so many factors going in. So basically, I try to get as much as I can in training so that I can get a number I'm happy with on the day.
Okay.
So if my PR's 110, man, I'm aiming for 100 on the day.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense? To get within that.
Yeah. I mean, you're basically understanding that you might not hit that 100% or that 100 plus, but if you can consistently kind of land those 95% or maybe a PR in
That's
one
right.
lift, and then kind of just kill it with consistency. And
can I get within 10% if I've only got 80% energy in the tank because I did lifts before it? And,
yeah,
you know, and not just that, but even if you're the last person to lift, like in a rising bar thing, you're not sitting there. You're helping people load weights and you're moving around and you're talking to people and you're putting the weight on and off the scales, and there's a lot going on. You're not sitting there with your hands nice and warm and dry and
yeah,
and doing nothing. Like, and it's kind of stressful. And, you know, sometimes the longer you wait, man, your brain can start playing tricks on yourself. If you see some other strong people drop lifts, for example, you're like, whoa, hang on a minute.
maybe I should open now.
Yeah,
I've been sitting out. Yeah, especially if you know the lifter. Yeah, if you know the lifter and you see them start struggling, it's like, hold on. I was going to sit out another 10 or 20 pounds, but I think I need to get in here and get my hands on this thing before I bomb out. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
He lifts, you know, he might lift 20% more than me, but he's opening with 10% less than me. I'm like, has he thought of something I haven't thought of? Like,
yeah, no, it can definitely throw you off. And I think that that's where the kind of lifting in person and that strategy and the kind of the mental games and stuff like that kind of becomes more of a factor in competition. But to kind of steer away from competition, one of the things I wanted to bring up was kind of discussing with you, and I know this is a topic we've touched on, but I wanted to really kind of break it down a little bit more, was should gym lifts or should training lifts be recognized? So we kind of hit on competition lifts. Competition is it's recorded, it's sanctioned, there's rules there, you know what I mean? There's judges, it counts.
yeah,
There's no debate that it counts. There's a database, it's a thing, and you know what I mean? No one's like, oh, that lift didn't count because it was at a competition with 20 witnesses and it met all the, you know, like no one's really questioning those lifts. Now, how much credit, or I guess credibility, do we give to training lifts, or how much do training lifts mean, or how much should we recognize them, would you say?
That's a tough question, man. That's a tough question because everyone is great at some lifts on their day, right? So some days I can go down and lift my fat man, no problem. And other days it's a battle. And is it more impressive that I did it on the day I battled or the day I did it easy?
True.
So the problem, I guess one of the problems is, how do you document it? Like, does that make sense?
No, yeah, definitely.
Like, you've got a competition that's sanctioned and everyone's compiled it. And then there's like, oh, okay, has Zach lifted the inch? Okay, well, I can see on his video he has. Has he lifted the inch? You know, is this recorded somewhere? Is someone taking note? Like, why is it the big lifts, the big historical lifts, everyone knows about them? Like, you know what I mean? No one said, hey, when Lane Snook did the double millennium lift,
Okay.
like, does it count? Of course it counts. Was he, you know, was he in competition? Was the date lined up? Had it been organized? No one really asks that. They just said, did he do it? Yeah, and he did it. He was the first to do it. That's cool as hell.
Now, so I don't know if
I think it has to count, but I think it has to count, but I think it's almost a separate category.
And now, would you say that, like how you mentioned, kind of like a millennium dumbbell lift or something like that, more on the feet side? Now, let's say it's a competition lift and they're doing it in their training. Is it like, until you do that on the platform, it really doesn't mean anything? Or how you know, how much credit do we give that? Because I feel like there's a difference in training between like feet category, like, you know, like feats and competition lifts, whereas feats are kind of like, there's no governing body for that anyway. So if you do it, like, no one can really take that away from me. I know that I did it. I don't need anyone else's approval for a feat.
Yeah.
Unless you're maybe claiming something that nobody else has ever done, like a double millennium lift, you know what I mean? Like, then maybe it's a little more important. But if you're just like lifting the inch and you know you lifted the inch, you know what I mean? It's like, of course it counts.
Yeah.
But if you're, let's just say maybe you're pulling a huge axle lift, but you're taking unrealistic rest times and no one else is touching that bar, and you're just on your own pace, and you're not, being rushed by, hey, it's your turn, you're up. Okay, you're not recovered. Who cares? You're up. It's like, what I'm saying is, how much credit do we give to some of these amazing gym lifts? How much do they really count for? Or is it kind of like on the platform or nothing? It's just training.
That's hard, man, because a training lift is 100% in your control. You know the condition of the handle. You've been able to get it how you want it. You've been able to control the amount of rest you've had, how many days off you've had. You go down and train this morning because I slept great last night. Or I go down and train this morning and I slept crap last night. The night before a competition, you really don't have much control how you sleep. So it's
true.
I think they definitely need to be recognized, but it needs to be, differentiated, if that makes sense. Like, I just don't know. Again, I don't know how you document it. You've lifted the fat man. I've lifted the fat man. He did it with 3 fingers. He did it with 2 fingers. Is that recorded somewhere? Does that mean anything?
Yeah, I think that's more
You
where
know
it's
what I mean?
like, I think, and that's where it's almost more of a personal endeavor, or like a personal goal.
Yeah.
Whereas I guess where I would steer the question now would be like guys that are lifting more in their garage than like maybe what a record is, and claiming that like, oh, well, I'm lifting more than that record, but it's under their ideal conditions, under their ideal rest periods, their implement, no one else touching it. They're the only one getting the stage, they're the only one on that stage or that platform at the time lifting in their house or wherever. So if it's not a feat and it's like a contest implement and someone's pulling those numbers, to me, it's almost kind of like, until you show up on neutral ground and pull it within those limited attempts with the other people's eyes on you, and, kind of real life in 3D, not that the video's fake. I get it. You lifted it, but until you kind of get in that atmosphere where maybe you didn't sleep well, maybe you don't feel good that day. You know what I mean? How do you feel about that? Like maybe guys are like consistently in training, they're lifting world records, but yet they never come to break them in a competition. You know what I mean? That's kind of been a thing in the past, or I don't know. I mean, do you have any like take on that topic, or is it just kind of like, hey, you lifted it at your house and that counts for what it is, and we just differentiate?
I know exactly what you're saying. And I train by myself a lot. And I know when there's 10 people watching me, it's different. I don't necessarily lift worse, but you're in a different mental state, On that note, but I've held record breakers at my house with myself and a few friends. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like a training lift almost, except the fact that I've reached out to the GSI and I've reached out to David Horn. I've nominated the date. So I've said it's going to be on the 31st. Yeah. And again, you've locked in the date, and leading up to it, there's a lot of factors that are out of your control. So you are actually turning up and doing it on the day that you've nominated, with factors out of your control. But it is still my handle in my garage. True. And maybe my mate was lifting on it, doing his record as well. But, in between, I didn't have 15 other sets of hands on it. I had only my hands from between my 4 attempts. Yeah. So, but you also got to earn that, because you got to be strong enough to have everybody else fall out first. Well, yeah, I get you get what I'm saying, right? If you're going to follow yourself in an event, you're probably pretty damn strong. You know what I'm saying? Or that's a good lift for you. Yeah, man. Yeah. I know what you mean. But no one else is running these things here. So it was like, well, I want the record. I'm going to have to run it myself. Well, what am I going to do? I'm going to have a competition. Well, I know what everyone lifts, and I know what order they're going to go in. If I make it a record breakers, we can have our lifts count. We can still try and get the records. And, we're participating in the sport, and we're helping it grow, and we're helping it get out there. And, there's people follow me that not really into grip. they see a thing and they go, what's that cool thing? I wonder if I'd be good at that. There'd be people watching your video right now that have gone, what's this? Looks like the head of a dumbbell. Why is he doing that? But he's thinking at the same time, he's thinking, could I do that? You know?
Yeah, for sure.
So,
now, no, keep going. Yeah.
I think they have to count, but again, unless you're going to make it an official day by talking to sanctioning bodies and giving notice and, you know, it's got to be different.
Kind of setting a window for it.
You're setting a window. You're giving yourself a deadline.
You can't just have like the greatest day of your life and you happen to film it and be like, oh, that counts now.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like hindsight's 2020. It's like, well, yeah, you already did the lift and now you get to like win. It's like, well, that's not how it works when you're on the spot, you know? So
yeah, like I think David asked for a month's notice when you're going to hold a thing like that. And I might hit the world record right now. And I'm like, okay, I want to go for it. Can I still do it in a month? I don't know. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. There's a lot of things that can happen in a month. And, you know, and if you're near your peak, it can be pretty easy to injure yourself when you're lifting at your maximum capacity.
Especially if you're doing multiple implements. I mean, trying to bring all levels up at the same time on multiple handles. Some things don't mix so well. So
for sure. Yeah.
One question I wanted to bring up also was just because we're kind of talking about gym lifts, sanctioning, how to sanction a little bit, you know what I mean? Or making sure that lifts are official versus gym lifts. You mentioned a future goal of yours would be to host a sanctioned nationals for Australia.
Yep.
And is that something that you would be looking to do next year, this year? Is that just, you know, you don't have no deadline, just.
No, it's a pipe dream at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't even know how to begin to organize it. I don't know. It's so small here, Grip, that I feel like you tell me 10 implements and I'll tell you the order people are going to lift. You know what I mean? I almost know the results because it's so small here. So
you already kind of, it would almost be a little bit biased because based on the implements, you can pretty much, like, we don't need to go through all these lifts. We already know who got what place.
Yeah, that's how it feels at the moment. Okay. There's not 60 people neck and neck that are in similar weight classes. I don't even think, I think the vast majority of weight classes would be one person. Like, I don't know that there's anyone else in Australia in my weight class that I'd be lifting against.
So pretty much just competing against yourself. And
yeah. And
I won nationals and it's like, hey, where's the other people on that podium? Oh, it was the one. I was the only one in my class.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, exactly right. So if I said, hey, it's going to be Evil Hub, well, it doesn't matter what weight class, you know, I'm going to win my weight class and so-and-so is going to win theirs. And if there's no weight class, Glenn Hunter's going to win. And if we're going to lift heavy dumbbells, well, I'm going to win my class and so-and-so is going to win theirs. But if there's no weight class, I know Luke Reynolds is going to win that. So so there's not enough people to, you know, in the classes to have a proper competition. And if there's not classes, well, I'm 99% sure I could tell you exactly how it's going to go down number wise anyway, and ranking. So do you think the answer to that would be to just try to continue growing the sport until you feel like you have more interest or more bodies, more higher quality lifters that maybe could kind of make it a little interesting? Do you think that's what it would take? Maybe just more quantity, but also a little bit of quality with it to kind of pressure guys a little bit? I would never say that we need higher quality lifters. We've got great quality lifters here. And I don't know that that's what makes the competition so great. Okay. Like to me, I want everyone to have fun, and you know, I don't want someone to rock up and go, "Oh man, I suck." Like that would be terrible for someone to walk away, and that would squash your psyche quicker than not lifting an inch. If you went in there with 15 people and you felt like, what am I doing here? Why did I come? That would be awful. So
Yeah.
if there was more people, and if they were not great lifters, but they pushed each other, man, that's perfect, right?
You just get a better competitive environment.
Exactly.
Regardless of the level, there's competition. There's,
Yeah.
And with grip having a variety of implements, there's a chance for somebody to be good at something and squeak an event out no matter what, So
yeah,
that makes sense. Now,
so quantity would be
Okay.
something that would need to build. Quantity, not quality, not so much quality.
Now, do you think that aside from yourself, do you think there are any other people, I guess, Aussie lifters, that are promoting or trying to kind of bring things up to maybe up the quantity as well? Or is it
Yeah,
kind
for
of
sure.
stagnant? Okay, you think there's okay.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a bit tricky to do
Just takes time.
because I think it takes time. And it's a bit tricky. Like, you either like me and you see an inch and you go, what is that thing? I wonder if I could lift it. And then you're like, man, I'm going to do whatever I can to make that happen. Or you're going to get people that go, it's a dumbbell. Why on earth would you want to lift that?
Yeah.
So I think it's just a matter of time until enough people see it. And there's definitely people here, putting it out there, posting stuff, making videos, doing lifts, trying to organize little meets. And like I said, it's microscopic, but even like Ben Cozzy's got such a big climbing audience. When he posts something, well, now thousands of people see it.
Yeah.
So no, I'm not the only one promoting it.
Gotcha. Now, with that being said, like moving forward to look for like the quantity or potential nationals in Australia, do you have anybody that you would like team up with? Do you think you would try to run that solo, or do you think you would kind of get together with maybe a group of other people and kind of get on the same page, maybe to kind of like, I guess, lighten the burden on yourself a little bit when it comes to managing a nationals? Would you try to run it and lift, or would you kind of get with other lifters and maybe, I don't know, kind of spread out the duties? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I'd have to delegate for something like that. I think I'd have to have the judges completely impartial. So I don't think I could run it myself anyway.
Gotcha. That's probably a good thing as well.
It would be far too easy to say, oh, that lift didn't count. Oh, my one did. Everyone's like, well, look kind of similar to me.
Yeah, for sure.
So I not only would I not know how to organize it, I'd obviously have to get some people that were impartial, kind of interested, had some experience in running competitions, event management. It'd need to be promoted. I wouldn't know how to do that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have a competition. That's great. 5 people turn up, and then the 5 people I know.
No, for sure. That makes sense.
Yeah, but you're running a big competition soon. So how have you delegated any of that out, or are you guys just running that yourselves? Or
me and Ben,
how are you?
Me and Ben Helms are going to co-host it. It's Heavy Hands. It's going to be September 9th. Ben came up with that name, so all credit to Ben for naming the competition Heavy Hands. That is Ben's name. I'm not taking any credit. So cool name, good idea.
Yeah, man.
So Heavy Hands 2023, September 9th. It's going to be in Charlottesville, Virginia. And so far we have a pretty good amount of signups. We got about 20 people signed up, and I'm not saying everybody will show up, and I'm not saying that more people won't sign up, and it could get closer to 25 or 30, but there's going to be a decent amount of people there, and anticipating some pretty big lifts and on some implements or bars and stuff that maybe haven't been used in a while, or you know what I mean? Kind of just a different mix. One thing we kind of wanted to bring back was the Andrews axle by Fat Bastard Barbell Company. I believe they contested it. It's a 2 3/8 inch axle. So your standard axle's 2 inches roughly, or 1.9 depending on the company. But this is 2 3/8. So you're looking at like an inch dumbbell size axle.
Cool.
Where a lot of guys in grip will bitch when giant strongmen come over on a 2 inch axle and pull bigger numbers than them because, oh, it's just about body strength and it's not about grip because the diameter's 2 inches. And, there's that debate. But then it's like,
Yeah.
well, the 2 3/8 definitely we felt kind of, I guess kind of levels the playing field because it kind of puts more emphasis on the grip than the body. So we kind of make it more about the hand strength. It's still a heavy body lift, but not compared to most people's deadlift. You know what I mean? But
It's gonna be some technique involved.
Absolutely. But we thought that was kind of a cool one to kind of bring back because I believe they contested that. Like it might've been at like 2019 Legends, which was a big competition that they hosted. But I believe the competition might even have been unsanctioned. So
Okay.
they tracked it. The bar's been used, but it hasn't been used in a long time. And we kind of wanted to bring back that bar for multiple reasons, kind of just because it's a cool piece. And just so you don't pull the same 2-inch axle. And it's kind of like, well, the bigger body weight guys are always or the bigger hand people are always going to pull more. It's like, I don't know. You know what I mean? Just trying to level the playing field a bit and change it up.
Yeah.
But
great idea.
But back to the original topic there, I'll reel myself in a bit. I believe that Ben, we have some people kind of delegated to do some other stuff. I'll probably mainly be kind of running the weight jumps and scorekeeping, making sure that I'm, keeping track of who hit what lift, who missed what's the next jump type stuff. Have other people kind of doing the plate loading. I believe Ben is going to probably be doing most of the judging. Now, 2 of the 4 lifts are 2 lockout because we have an axle lift and we have a Saxon lift. So anytime you're pulling to lockout, it gbe a little more, the judge has to be a little more involved than with a crossbar. So mostly that'll probably be Ben judging for the most part. But when Ben takes his attempts, we'll have to designate another judge or somebody like that. You know what I mean? To kind of keep everything even and fair. But we're going to be doing some involvement and that'll be a little bit different for me. I've hosted before, but it's been smaller. Haven't really hosted a bigger competition where, I got to really run numbers and be moving around. I watched Jed do it at nationals. Doesn't look easy.
Man, it's going to be tough because you're going to have like 20 guys that are psyched and happy and talking, and in the background they'll be talking about something that's kind of interesting, but I'm
gonna be stuck at a computer like, what did he lift it? What number was that? But no, that's an upcoming competition that we really wanted to kind of make it an annual thing from now on. And so far the feedback's been real good about it, and it seems like the turnout's going to be good. And we just want, whether it's beginner lifters, people just finding out about the sport, like we said, exposing it to new people, or the best guys to ever do it. We just want to get them all in the same room and just see what happens. You know what I mean? And I think that'll be good. Now I have a question for you. You might not know the roster because like I'm looking at signups and stuff, but since you mentioned heavy hands,
I wish I lived 15,000 kilometers closer.
Yeah, no, we would. Yeah, you would definitely be a nice one to throw in the mix. But since you're going to be all the way in Australia while we do it, I know you don't maybe have the full roster in front of you. Do you have maybe a prediction on who you think's going to win? Or do you need me to list the events for you first? That way you can kind of know what's happening. I don't want to put you on the spot too much, but
why didn't he pick me?
No.
Okay,
I don't necessarily think I'm going to win these events whatsoever. There's just some names that have signed up that like you said, kind of like, who's going to lift what a little bit. I'm not delusional about my abilities.
So what are the events again, and who's entered?
It's going to be 2-inch arm assassin rolling handle, so the one hand nightmare. So a 2-inch rolling handle, 2 3/8 inch axle, 3-inch Saxon bar, and Iron Mine Little Bighorn. And if I could say more notable people, if I kind of name bigger weights, Jed Johnson, Ben Helms, Eric Rassane.
Wow.
I'm going off the top of my head.
Tim Butler coming?
I don't know if Tim's going to make that trip. I think he had a scheduling issue or something. But yeah,
Sure.
Tim's always one. If there's a little bighorn in the lineup, Tim can always kind of shake stuff up with that because
Yeah.
his little
Well,
bighorn
he's
is an
he's a
equalizer.
strong guy, man. He's a strong guy, and his inch lifts are pretty crazy. And you know, the 60 mil axle, that'll suit him pretty good too.
Yeah. So I guess I only named a couple people. I'm kind of naming top
about-
people.
Is,
I know.
is Luke, is he coming?
I don't believe Luke Raymond's coming down.
Okay.
At least as far as I'm aware of. I've heard that Nick Sanders might be signing up, Skillet
Oh.
Hands. So
Yeah.
Nick Sanders would be another one that could kind of, get in the mix there. But yeah,
Yeah.
for lighter weight classes, there's guys like Will Reed who has signed up. And he's a pretty strong and consistent guy, man, especially at those lighter weight classes.
Oh yeah, he's super strong.
But he
Yeah.
might end up competing against himself, depending on who shows up and stuff like that. But like I said, it's all to be determined. I didn't want to throw you on the spot. We don't have to ramble about a prediction. I just wanted to see if you had who you think would take it, or if you don't want to go so direct as to who would take the overall belt for heavy hands, do you have like an event winner? Like, who do you think's going to win the handle or an axle, or just any prediction? It doesn't have to be super serious.
Well, the first three people you named are just, man, that could be any one of them on their day. That could be Jed, that could be Eric, that could be Ben. They're all, Jed's so strong and he's so experienced, and so is Eric. And Ben's just, come out of nowhere and doing stuff that I can't even imagine doing.
Yeah.
He's just so off the starting blocks. He's just up there. Like, Ben might be pretty comfortable being his event, him having a part in the tool selection and stuff. Man, could be Ben's event, I reckon.
Yeah,
I
that's
reckon
possible.
He could take it.
Yeah, I don't rule him out, but yeah.
But like I said, man, like, you're not going to be pulling small numbers. Like, you'll be keeping them in check. Because Eric's a little bit lighter than Ben, isn't he? So I don't think they're in the same weight class, are they?
No. Yeah, Eric, I believe, is going to be competing in the 93 kilo class, so he'd be 205 pounds or less. And then Ben is. I'm actually probably going to be above 93. I signed up as 93, but I don't think I'm going to cut down to 205. I'm a little heavy right now. I'm like 210, 215. Instead of, having the hassle of cutting 10 pounds, I've done that enough grappling and for fights and stuff and other stuff, just cutting weight. And it's kind of getting to the point where being a little bit older now, I'm not old, but as you get a little older, the cutting 10 and 12 pounds here and there every other couple months dude, I'm probably just going to show up at what I weigh and pull. You know what I mean? And that's
I think
what I'm doing.
Yeah, like, I think it's probably easier to get stronger than it is to get light again. And I think the crash dieting, it's really unhealthy, and it plays such a big part in your mental stability as well. Like,
I felt like it was kind of holding me back a little bit, cutting weight for some of these competitions. Like when I would do Arm Lifting USA events and I would cut down to 90 kilos, but I was walking around, 90 kilos being like 198. But, I might've been 212, 213, going into that, but I have experience cutting weight. So it's not like I'm just like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. And,
I know.
You know what I mean? I know how to cut the weight, but that still doesn't mean that it's not some effort. And it still doesn't mean that it may not affect your performance. You know what I mean? Even if you cut weight well, it's still a thing that's got to be done. You know what I mean? It just doesn't disappear. So that's kind of one of my reasons for maybe saying goodbye to 90 for sure. And maybe even saying goodbye to 93 and kind of just hanging out. If I compete Arm Lifting USA, I might keep it under that 100 kilo, 220 or lighter. And no problem for grip sport because it's 105 kilos, which is 231. So
you and me, mate.
We might end up, we're going to end up in the same class, right? Just make sure there's no grab ball and no 104 kilogram bell. Those are my two stipulations. If we got to go face to face, you don't get your Hall Millennium Bell, and you can't use the grab ball. I'll probably still
Only.
get my ass kicked at everything else, but it probably
No
won't be as
way.
bad. Yeah. But
No way.
so just to kind of keep things rolling on,
Yeah.
with everything, just kind of want to tap into your future training goals. So right now, how's training been going? And are your training goals more competition based or feet based?
I don't really know right now, to be honest. I feel a
Just
bit
a mix.
lost.
Okay.
I'm not particularly psyched for competitions. I'm just trying to, I was doing a lot of those lifts on the 104 and I noticed my back was getting a bit sore and I just sort of just took a bit of time out with the heavy lifting like that. Like it's a lot of weight for me, but it's also very low to the ground. It's very technique specific.
Yeah.
My arm, I think the way that the bell torques your arm was doing something funny to my elbow. And I just noticed that I was sort of starting to stagnate. And I was like, man, I'm just going to take some time out, rebuild, get everything right again, and then start thinking about getting strong. And then try and pick some goals. Like I definitely want to do the 104 for a couple of reps. I got almost 2 reps at one stage. There's a little bit of a break in the middle while I set my hand and whatever else, but I'd like to be able to do 2 consistent reps on that. I'd like to do 15 level lifts on the inch.
Okay.
Obviously, I want to. I think I got about 11 at some stage, but it'd be pretty cool to get 15. You know, without a break, just go. That'd be cool. I want to lift Blobzilla. I want to clean the 120 Legacy. I'm not sure what else, man.
So real quick,
sure
you have a 225 kilogram plate pinch written down. Interested in pinching 255s? Not as much.
Definitely.
Someday?
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. It's just on the to-do list at the moment.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Also, and like I said, these could be, way long-term. You have clean the inch dumbbell. Now, how much do you weigh right now? Just curious.
I think I'm about 102 kilograms, which is like
220 something.
224 or something, maybe.
So are you going to try to give Ben a run for his money as the lightest guy to clean the inch? Or are you going to bulk up for that?
No way. I had a long period off training because I had like a bulging disc on my C6 or C7, and it made like a burning sensation down my arm. It made my tricep shrink to about the quarter of its size. It made numbness in my fingers. Yeah. So the idea of
that's your stronger side as well, right? That's your stronger side as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm not sure exactly what did that. Probably poor form, lifting too much too often. But the idea of like, I can high pull an inch, without any drama now. But the idea of catching it,
getting under it, yeah.
I just find it pretty terrifying, man. As far as the injury, like that weight on your neck, the same neck that I've had previous injuries with. I would like to do it. I just don't know if I should.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. Yeah, I'm just going off of it because I know you wrote it down.
Yeah,
and I know that you've lifted much heavier bells.
Yeah,
but when you start tapping into cleans, it shifts from kind of like a deadlift to like more grips. It goes away from the grip strength and kind of starts going to explosive dynamic body. You know what I mean? Because there's plenty of guys. There's plenty of guys out there that I could probably reference that I think their grip is absolutely strong enough to clean the inch, but they don't have the body for it.
Sure.
And this is like I was going to say that's no offense to you whatsoever.
No,
somebody who's lifting a 104 kilo bell. But that becomes the issue. I mean, you can see guys, lift bells up into the 200s or 220s and they can't clean a 170. It just kind of goes to show how technical or how much body and you know what I mean? Just it shows, I guess, how much respect that feat really should
Oh,
probably get. And it seems like some people nowadays, Ben's made it kind of look easy, but I think some people have, almost taken that as like, I don't know, they just kind of breeze by it. Like, oh, Ben's cleaning it 15 times today. It's like 10 years ago, that probably would have been talked about a little bit more in the grip community. It's like now it's almost like, yeah, whatever. And then people are like doing like other silly little lifts, and it's like, it's not getting as much credit. And it's like, dude, do you know what cleaning the inch dumbbell means? Like, especially at that weight. Like, so I think it gets overlooked. I'm not saying that people don't give credit to it, but when you see guys that are doing grip strength, like I said, lifting heavier bells so much far beyond it, but they still can't clean it. It just kind of goes to show that it's kind of in a rare league of its own. And like I said, Ben out of nowhere, kind of came in and within a year pretty much made it look like it's just something that happens all the time. But up until that point, it was like not a whole lot of guys just casually in the grip world throwing up an inch clean,
I know.
So,
and like 10 tries in a day and not quite catch it. And, like he's just amazing. Like we both got the Holly 30 kilo blob.
Yeah.
And I knew he tried it and I knew he broke it off the ground. And
you guys were racing on that, right? You guys had like a competition where you were racing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah. I think it's from climbing days. You want to be the first person to climb something. There's something exciting about being the first person to ever lift something. I don't actually know why that's so appealing, but for me it is. And I just dropped what I was doing. Like I'm kind of always do that anyway. If I've got a goal, everything sort of falls by the wayside, and whatever is goal number one, that's all I'm working at. But anyway, I made this number one, and I think it took me, I can't even remember, 6 or 7 sessions before I could lift it.
Yeah.
And then I think 2 hours later, he's like, oh man, you beat me. And like 2 hours later, he'd done it. And I was like, oh, right. Wow. So, I don't know whether something clicked in his brain. Oh, now it's doable. It's not mythical anymore. This is now achievable. And then he's just like, bang, he can just do it. And then the next session, he cleaned it. And I think I've only lifted it one time, like a week later when I was like dialed in and my skin was okay. But he just like cleaned it. And I was just like, how is this possible? Like, he's amazing. It doesn't make sense. Absolutely amazing. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
All right, Joe. So,
yes.
We've covered a lot of random topics. Is there any other topic that you particularly maybe want to dive into, kind of discuss, anything on your mind, anything you think that maybe we looked over or didn't touch on?
Do you think that Ben's feats, as you said, I agree. I don't think they got anywhere near enough recognition, and they're still not getting anywhere near enough recognition. Do you think that's because inches seem to be far more abundant, more accessible, easy to get, more people have them, that it's sort of taken away a bit of mystique? Like before you go, oh, no one's ever lifted the inch. I'm like, yeah, well, that was when there was 1 inch and one guy had it and went around. So it's not like you could go down to, does what I'm saying make sense?
Yeah, you didn't just go buy one at Walmart.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah, well, yeah. Almost.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Man, there's like a 2-part answer for that for me. I think there being more abundance of inch bells kind of makes the inch bell lose its mystique a little bit, because it's not that like rare thing that, you know what I mean? Like you come across it a little more. You're seeing it in your.
He's done it.
But at the same time, like, just because there's more of them, I think it makes them like more accessible. I would almost think that because there are more inch dumbbells out there.
Yeah.
And there's plenty, if there's more inch dumbbells out there, then there's more cats putting their hands on it that haven't cleaned it. I think they would have more respect for the clean. Yeah. But it doesn't seem to go that way. Like, I think the fact that there's more inch dumbbells, the inch dumbbell kind of loses its mystique because it becomes a little more like humanized. Yeah. It becomes, a little more regular, a little more common. You start seeing more and more people lift it. but you haven't seen them clean it. And if they could just walk up and clean it, they would be, but they're not cleaning it. So I understand that more inch dumbbells being around and it getting more notoriety in the last few years. Maybe it loses its mystique as a grip strength feat, but I would almost assume that because more people can touch it and feel it and understand what it is, they would connect the dots when they see someone clean it and be like, holy shit. Like, I think they would almost have a better idea as opposed to like, well, what's the big deal? I mean, I do circus dumbbell at my gym, and it's like, you haven't touched an inch. But now that people are touching them more, I think they would respect the inch clean more. So that's kind of my answer. I think the inch has lost some of that mystique because there's more of them, but because more hands are on them and more hands aren't cleaning them, I think it's someone should
growing appreciation for the feet as well.
It should. It doesn't seem like it is, but I think it should kind of make people appreciate that level of a feat more. So we'll see. I mean, the guys that have either cleaned it or are familiar with bells and kind of at the top of the game in that realm, they definitely take notice of it and definitely pay respects to it. But it does just kind of seem like it gets overlooked. And then you could scroll through your timeline or whatever it may be, and it's, oh, this guy's cleaning the inch. Not a big deal. Let's see, let's see this guy lift 35 pounds on, I don't know, something that probably has no carryover into anything. You get what I'm like? It just seems to get lost in the shuffle, and maybe the oversaturation of social media is taken away from it, because maybe 5 or 8 years ago when people were posting grip videos, there wasn't guys uploading 4 and 5 videos a day of the most remedial shit.
It's true.
Like, here's me doing 30 pounds on a hub. Here's me doing 35. Here's my warm-up sets. It's like people have gotten into a habit of just filming themselves so much that like they're fucking filming warm-ups, just basic lifts, average lifts, doesn't matter. They're just in 4 and 5 times a day. That maybe some of these bigger lifts are just getting lost in the shuffle. Do you think so?
I think so.
That's just one theory.
Yeah. I think that can happen for sure. And I think if you open up your phone, if you're on Instagram, which I'm trying hard to leave, I've just deleted it again. And about a month ago nearly now. So if anyone wonders where I went, I'm still happy to stay in touch, just not on Instagram. Find me on WhatsApp. So you'd open up and there'd be 30 new posts and they're all amazing. But because there's 30 and you've got 10 minutes, you're trying to look through them all and you're like, oh yeah, he's done that, he's done that, he's done that, he's done that. Okay, now back to work. And again, I don't know if you're diluted, whether it's an overload, whether, our brains are just saturated perhaps.
Almost like overstimulated. Or I don't know. You're just like too short attention span, running through, trying to, I don't know, see the next thing. Oh, that was amazing. World class. Next thing. Like, and you don't have time to kind of appreciate it when maybe like back in the day, it was like, hey, someone just posted a video of them lifting the inch. And it's like, oh, that's the only video posted of someone lifting the inch this week. Like that was the only time somebody posted that. Whereas, I'm not saying that's only like one person could do it. I'm just saying like maybe there was a week where like if you were to look on social media, maybe it was like, oh, so-and-so in the group community lifted the inch, and it was kind of known because it was maybe smaller group, less content. Now it's like, I don't know. I don't follow too many people, but I still have kind of that oversaturation. I mean, I try to limit who I follow, make sure that it's like quality stuff that I'm seeing. Stuff that kind of, I guess, inspires me or people I know personally. I'm not really big into idolizing and following strangers or just pointless shit. You know what I mean? It doesn't have some kind of training benefit, knowledge benefit, but yeah, I don't know. I just think it's the culture we're in.
I've done it myself. And I find myself doing it. And that's part of the reason I really didn't like it anymore, was that I'd go down and lift to make a video to have something to post. I thought, what am I, a kid? Why am I doing this? Why am I so obsessed by this? Like, if I didn't have a video camera with me, would I have tried to do that? And I found the answer was no sometimes. And I was like,
Okay.
well, this isn't healthy. This is getting me off topic. Like, this isn't making me stronger. I'm doing a lift I've done before. And, you know, if you're posting something and you're psyched and you're happy about it, it's a PR, whatever, like, I don't care if you're lifting 500 kilos or 2 kilos. You're happy with it? Cool, man. That's great. I'm psyched for you. You're enjoying it? That's what I want to see. Someone enjoying, trying to progress. But I found myself posting stuff that was not important to me, and not, they're not PRs, they're not goals, they're not milestones. I was just posting to have something to post.
Just kind of a filler, like a filler post.
Yeah, like, and I don't know, and I couldn't explain why. And I was just like, man, I don't need this. I don't know why I'm doing this. So I've just stepped away now. I don't want to play that game anymore. I'll put a few things on YouTube or whatever, but
yeah,
I don't want to. I'm not making mindless videos. I'm training seriously for a goal. I'm still trying to achieve. I'm more psyched than ever. I just don't feel the need to post my warm-ups or, you know,
like tricks.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, like, yeah, no, it totally makes sense because
yeah, I feel burnt out from it. Like,
yeah, I pretty much try to kind of I almost try to kind of lift by the code or even live my life by the code that, like, I'm not changing myself for the camera.
Yeah.
One of the things with me is, like, yes, I post stuff.
Yeah.
In my mind, what I'm doing is I'm documenting lifts. I'm not filming myself. Like, I'm not like staring into the camera, making sure I look good. Like, I'm not filming me. So even, right. But even so even when I'm filming myself, I don't truly feel like I'm filming myself. I'm documenting training. I'm documenting my lift. And that's kind of how I approach it. And that's what I try to kind of live by when I do that. So I don't want to be that person that's like, and I don't have any like names specifically, but like just in the social media culture we have, there are people that are just, I mean, they post videos and the videos are more about them, not their progress, not their lifts, not their technique. You know,
that doesn't psych me up, man. You know,
I just can't get into
I like
it.
videos you're like, I want to go do blobs. Like,
yeah. So I try to really keep it, you know, to where, like, I'm not doing lifts for other people or, oh, I'm going to try this cool thing because that'll get views. I'm not trying to go that route.
Yeah.
If that's going to take away from my goals and my training plan. So I would like to believe that, and I'm not going to say it's the case 100% of the time. I'm not saying maybe when I first got into grip.
Have you posted something and then the next day, like, why did I post that, man? Delete.
There's been times where, I'll put it this way, maybe that I didn't post something that I felt like, you know what I mean, was like out of programming, or maybe I did it just to post. But maybe something that didn't get posted, but I spent a lot of time trying to do in the gym and it messed up my training. Like, I got some idea that would be a cool video or a cool thing. And I spent 30 minutes trying to mess around with it. And maybe I didn't pull it off. So then it doesn't get posted, but it still ate up 30 minutes of my training session. Yeah. And that's like just unacceptable. You know what I mean? So that kind of stuff. So when I say that, like, I'm documenting these lifts, I totally understand where you're coming from with that, and choosing that route to kind of, like, you know, step back, kind of go old school. You know what I mean? I'm only 32 years old. But I feel like I was supposed to be born like 100 years ago or something. You know what I mean? I kind of have an old school mindset. So yeah, I document these lifts, and I try to keep it at that. And I try to stick to the program and what the goals are. And I don't really want to get caught up in the trick of the day, the best test on this handle, so-and-so's leaderboard. As long as you're challenging yourself and having fun, that's cool. But like, for me, I just want to, like I said, I got goals and I'm checking them off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's not too many things I've set my eyes on so far that, with a little bit of time, that haven't fallen, you know? And the more that I try to, I don't know, do finicky, goofy stuff for some type of attention, it's just like more time that I'm not doing that, you know, and I just can't have it. So I agree with you. And that was just one of the topics too I wanted to bring up was, you know, how many people do you feel nowadays are truly following a plan when they're training? Do you think most of these grip guys, I know the top level guys, but I'm saying, like, as far as our I say I don't have any like ownership of anything, but in the sport, the newer crop of people kind of coming in and finding out about it.
Yeah.
Do you find that more of them are sticking to that plan and kind of doing what we're talking about? Or do you kind of see it being a little more of the gimmicky lifts for attention? There's not as much purpose behind it. It's just a little more filler. I don't care if I'm still doing the same weight 3 months from now. I'm just posting stuff. You get what I mean? How do you feel about the
Yeah,
balance
that's
of the new, like the newer crop of people or this generation, whatever you want to say? Do you feel like the newer people to grip are, I don't know, 80-20, 50-50, like half are serious, half are, how would you rate that? Any idea?
that's a tough question, because when you first find the sport, you want to try everything.
True. Yeah.
And if I see Zach Mullins hand-to-hand transfer a blob, you think, oh, I want to try that too, man.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh yeah, you're kind of sharing the experience. As far as sticking to a plan when you're new, I think when you come into the sport new, you don't even have a plan. You don't even know what it is. You probably
just go crazy.
Yeah, well, I know I did. Like, I just wanted to get every single tool there was and see what my max was. I just wanted I need a flask, I need a tip tester, I need an inch, I need, whatever it is. And as soon as I get it, I'm just, filming that and lifting that and maxing out on that. And I don't know, because like any new tool, it takes a while to get used to it. And you might start lifting more, not because you're stronger, because you know how to use it now. And so many times I've done it myself. I'll get it and I'll just use it for 3 weeks. And then finally I'll put my thumb slightly different and I'll lift more. And I'll go, okay, no worries. And then 2 months later, I'm lifting the same weight. I'm like, all right, stop, go do some other training, come back, lift more. So I don't know if that answered the question, but
No,
I don't
sure.
think they even know what they want to have a structured training.
Yeah, just kind of navigating and finding their way.
Yeah, and the fact that it's fun and they've got all these new things to try, that's what's so addictive about it, right?
Okay, now the question to follow up off that. With that being said, you have that kind of like, I don't know what we're going to call it, honeymoon phase where you're just buying everything.
Yeah, I think everyone does.
Now that you've passed that phase, you've been doing this for how long total, would you say? Like knowing about grip sport?
I think specifically grip stuff, as in for grip sport, grip feet, probably 4 years or something now. I think it would probably come up.
Okay. So probably about a year or two before me, probably. I mean, we're not too far
Something
off.
Like
really.
that. Something like that.
So now that you've kind of had that period to kind of vet through all these things and kind of know what works, what you like, what you don't like, you've kind of had the trial run or more than a trial run in your experience. What are your like essentials? What are like things that like you would never sell, never get rid of? You got to have, you got to train, and why?
Man, that's tough. I've got tools on display that I use all the time, and then I've got tubs full of other tools.
I'm guessing the bells.
I'd never sell my bells.
Yeah.
I'd never sell my blobs. Okay. No way in the world.
If you do sell them back to me.
Man, that were gifts from good friends, man. They're not going anywhere. And I wouldn't sell it. Gotcha. If you said to me, hey man, I need a fat man, and you want it back, I won't be charging you, man. So bells, blobs, some kind of rolling handle. It is slightly different to an inch. I think like Sanctioned and axle is probably a good thing.
Yeah, because you could use that with 2 hands and 1 hand. So I mean, you have a little more diversity there than just one lift. You know what I mean? You have multiple lifts within one thing. You could do curls. There, you know what I mean? Like Saxon curls. There's a lot of application there that goes beyond just the lift. Yeah,
for sure. I don't really like painful grip tools. I find the fin ball, I think it's a cool concept. I find the technique to lift the maximum amount is just kind of awful. It twists my index finger in such a way, it feels like it's doing awful things
Kind
to
of
my
rolls
knuckle.
sideways.
It rolls sideways. It feels like you're almost, the pressure in order to lift heavy is just awful, even if you use perfect technique.
I
So
feel that
all
with
those-
my right finger. I feel that on my left
Yeah,
side, I don't really feel it. And I think it's just because I have more flexibility somewhere, but my right hand totally feels that. It'll start like rotating this knuckle out this way,
yeah.
but my left doesn't really suffer from that. So I kind of pull a little better left-handed on the finish ball for that reason, really. But
I
yeah,
remember talking to Harry, and Harry Tolan, he's like, man, once a week, that's ample.
yeah,
Don't do it any more than once a week, and you'll keep going up. So that's probably, if there was a flood and I had to put 10 things in the boat, well, bells, blobs, Axel Saxon.
then you're just
And
sinking
then,
because it's all the heavy shit.
Yeah.
No, I'm just messing with you. I'm just fucking around.
Yeah, exactly. But you always want to keep some kind of anvil and some cool plates or something. But yeah.
Okay, so that covers a decent amount of topics for now.
Cool, man.
Do you have any questions for me? I kind of just leave that open.
Yep.
If you, I mean, as we've batted some questions back and forth, but do you have any questions that you would kind of like to ask me? Just being the first episode and whatever, just having this time to talk.
Yeah, man, you are probably the most generous person in grip, man. Like, you've gone out of your way to make gear accessible to so many people around the world, and your generosity is just absolutely insane. Why is that? Why are you like this? Why are you so happy to help people? Like, is it you just want the sport to grow, and you're doing good things to good people, or like, where does that come from? Because some of this is pretty great personal financial cost that you're footing the bill for a lot of these times. And
no, for sure. Yeah. I get
like we never met in person, but man, you're my bro. Like, but I never met you face to face.
Yeah.
And you've been super kind to me, and I know you've done great things to other people as well. Like, it's amazing. Just wondering what drives you.
Man, it's a tough question, but it's not, like, at the same time, it's a weird one. If I had to just answer it honestly, part of it has to do with the same thing you said, like with Hari Talonen, and you ask these world record guys, or you ask these guys that are up there, and I'm not claiming to be. I know I'm not there yet. Maybe someday I can get my lifts up there. But you get what I'm saying. I'm not like a premier grip guy yet in my mind. I've done some good lifts, but I have a long way to go before I could mess with the top of those lists, or stuff like that. So, but having the top guys like you or Hari or whoever, Jed, Adam, I've had so many different people reach out and help me, and I guess I just always wanted to kind of keep the same thing going. And I know that kind of copies off your thing, like, oh, well, that's what it was like when I talked to him, so I was going to help him be the same. But really, man, to get like deeper on the question, as opposed to like outside of grip world, is basically because I don't feel like I ever had that person do it for me. And what I mean is, like, I never had anybody like find me a fat man blob, or like when I was younger, like when I was like 17 years old, and like kind of like wanting to get into MMA and shit. I didn't have somebody that was like, oh, well, we're going to take you down to the gym and get you signed up, and I had to figure all that shit out on my own. So like I had to go and like walk in, like fresh out of high school, fighting whoever, in sparring. I mean, I'm just saying, like, fighting grown men.
Yeah, man.
I'm still fucking basically a kid at that point. And I'm walking in these gyms with professional fighters, and you just showing up. They don't know you. Back then, people trained a little rougher. They're a little smarter nowadays about brain damage and stuff. So
You
you're
want to
just,
have a go? I'll teach you about MMA.
yeah, I mean, strangers are showing up and essentially fighting every night, sometimes. So that's how it was back then. And man, I just had to kind of do everything the hard way. And I'm not saying that I didn't have some decent coaches or good leaders to help me out. I did. But at the same time, I never really felt like I had that person to, I guess, be generous or help me out and kind of save me the trouble. I had to kind of take the long route, take the hard route, So when I get that chance to kind of help someone else, maybe fast forward a little bit, or, hey, here's a couple speed bumps, I'm gonna jump you past them because you don't need to go through what I went through. That's where a lot of that, I think, comes from. So when somebody hits me up with a lifting question or anything nowadays, I'm more than happy to answer it and take time out of my day, drop what I'm doing, film a video, shoot it over to them, talk to them, whatever, because I didn't really feel like a whole lot of people ever did that for me. I felt like I had to go, like, you know what I mean? Just kind of fight for every little thing I had. So just through fighting from every little thing I had, never really having somebody hand stuff to me or kind of guide stuff, it's like, well, because I didn't really get that kind of help, I'm gonna make sure when I get in a position to where I can help other people, I'm gonna try to be the best resource for them. So that would be my best answer without being too long-winded. But yeah, that's pretty much that. If that makes
I recognize that totally. Like, I've gone the long route, never really done anything the easy way, and then I see someone, they get an inch and they're struggling, and I'm like, man, I'll get 15 messages. try this, work on this, think about this. And I've sent videos to people, and I love seeing the progress. People, they seem overwhelmed, and suddenly it makes sense. But I've also done it, and people are like, man, that doesn't work for me at all.
Yeah. But one of the best things about that is, like, when you do give someone that advice or you do that stuff, and then they, you see them succeed, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You see them pull it off.
Feeling, right?
So, I mean, that kind of, I don't know. There's been times where, like, I've had other people hit certain feats and I almost was like happier for their feats than mine.
Oh, I get that as well, man.
And I felt the same way, like, where, like, don't get me wrong, I've had some decent fights and I've won fights and blah, 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 whatever. And, it's cool to win, but I've always been more nervous, like, when I'm coaching somebody or I'm coaching a friend and they're fighting, because, like, that's my friend. I don't want my friend to get hurt. Like, if I get fucked up, I'm responsible for that. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's on me a little bit. I don't really feel as nervous, but when it's somebody else and it's, like, out of my control, it's like, I don't want them getting injured. So I'm almost, like, more happy when I have a friend that wins or a friend that pulls off a big lift, because it's, like, a little bit out of my control. So when it goes good, I don't know, usually a little happier for that kind of stuff than my own stuff. And when I lift my own stuff, it's kind of like, okay, well, let's add 5 pounds. That wasn't shit. Or,
cool, man. So what's next?
Yeah, exactly. And then it's the never ending list of, like, we're just climbing the feet. Cause there's stuff I've done grip wise the last year that I probably thought would take me a lifetime, and I've already done it. So now I'm kind of like, well, I guess we just keep going. You know what I mean? So I don't know, man. But yeah, like I said, any questions you could ask away, or we could begin to wrap up. We're probably coming close to 2 hours ish at this point. But I just want to give you the chance to, you know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
Have the floor.
I love what you're doing here. I love the way that it's not super focused, just a grip sport. You're keeping it open, grip strength related, rather than, just down the line grip sport. So I guess that, you must be very psyched about this to want to do this, right? So what makes you psyched for training grip, and what makes you psyched to want to promote it, grow it? Is that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I get that. Man, I think just from a young age, I kind of realized, and young, maybe teenager, kind of just realized how important, when you're doing something, your hands are. You know what I mean? Like, just being able to pick up something's kind of impressive. Or if you get into a fight with somebody and you're grappling, you're latching onto somebody, you're doing something, like, you want to feel strong. You want to be in control. And we just use our hands for so much. So I think that like early on, I found a good respect for grip strength, even though I didn't know how to really train it. And I didn't know that it was even a sport, but I still valued the fact that like what we could do with our hands. You know what I mean? If you think about past generations and how many people have made a living by their hands, blue collar, manual labor, just that kind of work ethic and stuff like that. Like it's your hands, you know what I mean? Like that's the tool that's building it. So, to actually know that there's historical feats that are like have lineage and are tied to hand strength, and then finding out that there's places I can go and other people that are like maximizing this hand strength and testing it and competing on big stages. It's like, man, like what's not to be excited about? You know what I mean? Like there's a deeper history from like, you could talk about like the manual labor, blue collar, just regular working people, the hands that have basically built the countries we live in or what we've done. All the way up to, you know what I mean? Challenging yourself, finding out about yourself and what you're capable of doing and, you know, reaching your full potential and blah, 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 and all that. You know what I mean? Maybe it's cliche to say that, but that's what kind of keeps me going. And very similar to, I do a lot of relations to fighting because I spent a lot of time in that world. I'm still tied to the MMA world and doing some training and stuff and helping people and coaching and stuff. But I relate a lot of things to fighting because I spent more time doing that than I have grip.
That's your background and that's your history and your passion, obviously.
So fighting is like one of those lifelong pursuits where like nobody ever just stops and says, I'm as good as I'm ever going to get. I know it all. I know it all. I'm the best fighter in the world. I know everything.
I've got one more fight left.
But you know what I mean? So nobody ever really, nobody good has that kind of mindset or attitude. It's a lifelong endeavor. It never ends. And that's what keeps me pumped about grip, because it's the same way. There's so many different handles, feats, ways to advance feats. I'm never going to run out of doing grip stuff or just mastering grip to where I can just sit back and be like, oh, I've done it all. Like you can always add 1 pound, 1 rep, 1 second. You know what I mean? A new challenge, a new width, a new diameter, whatever the case may be. There's always something. So it's like, it's easy to not get, I guess, kind of like get stale with it and just, I don't know. Where if all you had was bench press, it's like, God, I can only do bench press for so long. And then
you're gonna offend people here, man.
You know, until my shoulders are shit or until my body gives out. But when it comes to grip, it's like, well, hey man, maybe this isn't firing right now, but I can go over here and set a fucking record or a PR in this. And it makes it easy for you to kind of shift gears and shift lanes, even when things aren't going your way. So yeah.
I've done that, man. I've been burnt out from bells and gone over and lift up the anvil stub or the pip cross something and you hit a PR and you're like, man, how good is this sport? There's just, there's just 100 ways to get that buzz, you know? Do you think, like you've come a long way pretty quick. You've only been doing this 3 years, you said, and you've obviously had some strength and fitness background, but you've done amazing things in your time. Like some of your feats are just, you know, incredible. Do you think you'd be as hooked if you hadn't had such success? Like, do you think if you were still struggling to pick up the inch, if you couldn't get what you were happy with on certain lifts, because you're pretty well-rounded, strong across the board, and like I said, you've done amazing things. Do you think success has helped or been crucial to you being so passionate about it and so driven?
I did have a little bit of well, not say a little bit. I played sports my entire life, very physical, lifted weights since I was 13. So like I had a good strong base coming into grip, and then grappling for, you know, however many years before grip, you know, 12, 13 years of rolling around grappling. So that stuff helps, but just to kind of put it in perspective, I still didn't have it like super easy. I wasn't really a natural at a lot of lifts. Like I said, that first time I touched the inch, it didn't budge, and it took me about 1.5 years to lift it. So I'm not saying that, you know what I mean? I'm not saying that's not quick success, or, you know, there's other guys that have probably taken longer, but it wasn't like
put work. Yeah, but you put work in and got rewarded. Say that reward was
for sure. Yeah, for sure. I think it would be harder and harder to keep coming back.
Yeah.
But at the same time, personal examples I could think of would be, I don't know. It's like you said earlier, like with climbing or something, you kind of get bit, or you kind of get the bug to do it. And then that almost like consumes everything. You know what I mean?
That's
In your
addictive.
So that's how I feel like I am with the things I get into. So if it's like music, I'm listening to music like all the way. If it's fighting, I'm like all the way. If it's grip. So I don't really get like deterred from doing too much. Don't get me wrong. I
Yeah.
get pissed off on sessions when they don't go my way and I don't.
Oh, of course.
But
Of course.
like another example would be like the red pill. Anybody's familiar with the red pill? It's a blob.
Yeah.
It's very slick. It's wide. It's hard to pick up. It's really one of the toughest blobs I've ever lifted still. And I bought one, like I said, that was one of the first things I purchased. And man, it probably sat in my garage for 2 years before it saw air. So
Yeah.
I mean, that's 2 years of like me maybe rolling it out, pulling on it. I'm still training other blobs. I'm still doing blob training, and
Yeah.
there's no reward. Like I'm literally thinking like, should I just roll this thing down the street? Should I sell it to somebody? You know,
Yeah.
is it just like beyond my anatomy to even like lift this thing? Or
Yeah.
do I tough it out and, you know what I mean? Just keep going. And then like one day it comes up and I filmed it and I was like, I almost had to go back to my phone because I was like, did that really happen? I almost like doubted it that much. I was like, what the fuck, you know? So, yeah, don't get me wrong. Some things have come quicker, a little quicker to me than others. So I'm not saying I've had a slow route, but there's definitely been those moments where I haven't been rewarded and it's been pretty hopeless. And through just, I don't know what you want to call it, perseverance, just pushing through, like just not quitting. You know what I mean? Like just knowing that like, hey, I didn't get it today. I'll be back again. Like I'm not going away. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if it takes 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, I'm lifting that thing and that's that. You know what I mean? So that's just my attitude. I guess I'm not like easily persuaded to give up. So
your personality almost made it impossible to fail.
yeah, because I almost like
You couldn't let go.
no, and
You got the
that's what I
idea.
do with most things, and that's why some sessions I'll just get roped into the point where it's like diminishing returns because it's like I'm trying to shoot for something that I just can't do. You know what I mean? Like it's beyond my reach, and I'm just I don't know. You know what I mean? Like you take attempts on a big bell, and it's like okay, you only get so many attempts, and then it's downhill. But
Yeah.
I'll continue to press the issue and get longer rest period, come back to it, some marathon session, and it just goes worse and worse. So come back to it another day.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's like I said, that's mostly it. I think I would still do it. A lot of my lifts when I first started were not very impressive out the gate. Most people maybe don't know that or they didn't see them, but like I couldn't pinch 235s when I started. I probably was barely lifting 150 on a rolling thunder. There's a lot of lifts that, you know what I mean, were by no means impressive. Was I strong at like bench press or decent deadlift? If I grab a hold of you and we wrestle, I'm like, yeah, I'm strong. But for specific grip stuff, a lot of my entry numbers were not very high. And it really took me kind of applying all the other specialties in my life to my grip training and just my training knowledge to get those numbers to jump. Now, don't get me wrong. They started to jump quickly after that, but like, I didn't just walk up and start picking up things that were like world class. I was kind of like very defeated and humbled almost every single time I touched something. And it took a little bit of maneuvering to get to finishing stuff off. So
Yeah. That's cool, man. That's cool. I'm glad you stuck with it.
Thankfully.
Man, I'm gonna have to wrap it up.
No, Joe, that's good, man. Yeah, like I said, I think we covered most of the topics. If I would say if anybody wants to follow you, I know you're temporarily taking a break from Instagram, but you do have a YouTube channel up. You do have some world-class lifts on there and some footage. Is there maybe a YouTube or something that you could throw out where people could maybe see some of your lifts and check out some of the training stuff you've done?
Yeah, I don't actually know what it is. Just Joseph Hodgson on YouTube. I think it's like got some number under it if you find the channel. But if you go into maybe like Holly 104 kilogram dumbbell or Millennium dumbbell or Thomas inch dumbbell, something will come up and you'll find me. If you want to find me, I think I'm out there somewhere.
Okay. Well, Joe, hey man, I won't hold you up anymore. I really appreciate your time. And I don't know, just like I said, definitely glad to have you here for episode 1, doing these interviews. And I'm sure you'll be back at some point in time for some other stuff, but look forward to seeing what you're going to do with your training, some of the feats we talked about. I know you're close on a few, so I'll just be keeping an eye out and kind of seeing how your training is going and everything else. And for everybody listening, like I said, check Joe's lifts out, try to get in contact with him if you can about training anything. If you're for some reason listening and you're in Australia, you know, I don't know, I'm assuming most of the listeners I'll have will probably be my home country first, but if you're in Australia, don't hesitate to get a hold of Joe or somebody else, or find grip people in your area that are doing some form of grip sport, some form of arm lifting, something strength related. That way that quantity over there can kind of up and get to the point where we can have Joe hosting a nationals or getting bigger stuff running and make the sport bigger. So that's the only thing, man. So I'll go ahead and let you get off here. And until next time, have good training, man.
Man, it was great talking to you.
Yep, you as well, man.
All right, talk soon, Zach. Thanks, man.
I'll see you, man.
See ya. Bye.